Okay, I'm going to talk about this equality and equity cartoon, which is quite famous. For those of you who are just listening to this video, I shall explain. There are three children of differing heights. Let's say one is 12, one is 7, and one's like 2 years old. Now they're watching a baseball game and they're trying to watch it over a fence, which means they're trying to watch the game without paying for it, which in itself is sort of an interesting thing because you're talking here about basically illegals, aren't you? But, well, kids, so that's why they're having kids and not adults. So it's starting in a dishonest way to begin with, because of course we all know that kids watch these sorts of things over fences and nobody feels too bad about it because they're kids. But equality and equity doesn't really apply to kids the way the woke mob are dealing with it, are they? It applies to adults. So there's a little bit of a difference here. Leaving that on one side, we have these three children and the fence would be too high for any of them to see the game. However, they've got three crates that they're standing on, and two of them can see the game, the third can't. Why? Because the taller one, the 12-year-old, the fence now, when he's standing on the box, comes to his waist. The middle one is the 7-year-old, and I suppose, and his head, his chin comes above the fence, so he can see the game as well. But the little one, the 2-year-old, he's looking straight at the fence because the boxes are the same height. They all get the same box. The next cartoon shows the three of them equity. And what happens there is that the taller one doesn't have a box because he can see the game at chin height. His chin comes above the fence. The middle one, he's still on the box because he is still at chin height over the fence on that box. The little one has the box that the big one had. So that gives him double the boxes, and there he is, also at more or less chin height, looking over the fence, and they all get to see the game. And it sounds marvellous. Now, let's just unpick that a little bit. First of all, we're assuming that the 12-year-old can actually see over the fence. So the fence has to be the right height. Secondly, the little one is now standing on two boxes, and if he fell off that, he would seriously hurt himself because it's double his height. And that's quite dangerous. So what you're saying here is you are putting this little one in a position of danger or difficulty because he's going to have help both getting up and getting down. He's got to remember not to wave about too much because he could fall off or overbalance. He is in a position of discomfort, you might say, in order to get this equity. And you are, as I say, assuming that the 12-year-old can give up the box and still see over the fence. It isn't really as nice as it sounds. When, for instance, it is now well established that when a person from an underprivileged background is given the equity of a second box, and despite the lower qualifications he has, I'm using the word he here, but it could just as easily be she, I suppose, and then are pushed into a very high pressured learning environment, like they're sent to Harvard or something like that, they end up dropping out mostly because they cannot keep up with that sort of pace. And this happens a lot, and then they end up feeling like failures, where I think Tom Sowell mentioned this. And he said if they went to a middling sort of educational establishment, they do very well, and they might even improve more, because it's just going slower, and that's all they need, just a little bit more time. But you can't expect something like Harvard to slow down to their slowest pupil. That would never happen. So this equity idea has problems. There are also other situations. For instance, let's say we're talking about education here again, there are some people who will never reach the sort of educational level, however much help you give them, of the most talented. And, whatever you do, you are not going to make. Just a minute, I'm sorry, I've got a phone call coming in. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was the vet. My dog has something called Perthes disease, which is a malformation and a degeneration of the hip bone, poor chap. And I needed some more pain medications. He's all right most of the time, but then he gets these arthritic episodes, and I have to get pain medication for him. Apparently, he can have paracetamol as well, so I might try that, because the medications they give him, they're quite strong. Anyway, let's get back to this equity and equality. So here we have this problem where you make extra provision for somebody who, however much extra you give them, they will never get to the same level. But meanwhile, you're taking stuff away from other children that might benefit from it. I happen to have personal experience of this, because one of my sons turned out to be very gifted, and he got very bored in class, but there was actually no provision for somebody of his intelligence, and he just caused trouble. That's basically what happened. Now, in years gone by, actually, this didn't matter. My husband, who was also very gifted, it was a school where the teachers didn't mind him taking days off, because they knew he could make it up, and that's how he solved it. But now things are different, and you can't miss school, and so he used to just sit around causing trouble. So I know about this, and if there'd have been some sort of fast track provision for him, he wouldn't have caused trouble, and probably he would have been happier. However, he managed all right. I'm not complaining too much. I'm just saying that this equity thing is not all it's cracked up to be. And this cartoon is intensely dishonest in almost every way. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo, with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com, and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe, and share, share, share.